Good afternoon and welcome to Tech Talk 1, the future of work with the students of today, presented by Dr. Amanda White from Freelance Robotics. The Tech Talk series is brought to you by the Australian Computer Society, the ACS Foundation and the ICT Gateway to Industry Schools program. The Information and Communication Technology Gateway to Industry Schools program encourages partnerships between industry, government, schools, and their communities to build Queensland's future information technology workforce. The Gateway program is proudly supported by the Queensland Government. My name is Geraldine Pan and I will be your host today. I am an intern at the ACS Foundation and I am currently studying a Bachelor of Games Design and Development at Macquarie University. In the spirit of reconciliation, ACS acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This series of webinars is designed to provide information for parents, careers advisors, and teachers about careers in the tech industry. Established and emerging tech leaders talk about their journeys and provide insights into study and career pathways into an amazing tech career. Each presentation will last 25 minutes, followed by a 10-minute Q&A session. Please use the Q&A function to submit a question for the presenter. Our guest presenter for Tech Talk 1 is Dr. Amanda White, a registered psychologist and general manager of Freelance Robotics based in Redlands, Brisbane. Dr. White's presentation is The Future of Work with the Students of Today. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Geraldine. And welcome everyone to this Gateway to Industry Schools program ICT webinar focusing on robotics and automation. My name is Dr. Amanda White and I am a psychologist and general manager of Mechatronics engineering firm Freelance Robotics. And I also run the Robo Tradies consultancy at Industrial Robotics. My additional role is with our state cluster Queensland Robotics, where we are building industry opportunities and project connections for the future of advanced technology in Queensland. Our focus here is the future of work with the students of today. As students ready themselves to enter the workforce, rapid changes thanks to digitisation, globalisation and the downstream impacts of COVID pandemic management mean that these students are entering a brand new world. And the great news is a high volume of new jobs are emerging. In Queensland, the state government estimates this to be over 1 million new jobs. But the trade-off is that many of the work roles we know are being retired or massively restructured with robotics and with automation. So over 800,000 jobs are estimated to go or maybe be radically changed. Work role change can look like job insecurity if you expect today's student to work yesterday's jobs. So freelance robotics and also industrial robotics represent a new kind of employer, and we are mechatronic engineering firms. Our core business is in robotics and automation. Note that artificial intelligence, it's actually a sub area of robotics, and robotics and automation operates in every industry sector. So for example, hospitality, manufacturing, infrastructure, biomedical, we're there. And the mechatronic engineering staff skill set is matched to that industry. What we do depends on what our clients need us to do for their projects. So our focus is on services, which is the design and delivery of quality systems as well as systems servicing and repair. Our products, such as the Blue Dragon framework, which is a modular architecture industrial Internet of Things, are provided to better service the client's needs. Shortly, it will become evident why we're having a services focus in industry and why that's so important. For context here, is an overview of the industrial revolutions undergone in our society to date. So clearly computing, robotics, automation, actually these are not new. These are Industry 3 technology. Industry 4 changes are the extension to cyber-physical systems, so integration of smart technologies through the use of artificial intelligence and our ability to harvest and use data. It pushes digitization. Advanced technology is also gifting us new ways of interacting with the world, with such new tech as extended reality and truly autonomous vehicles. We expect greener technology, we expect better quality and with more immediacy, and our jobs, the good news is they're less repetitive. The workers, we're becoming creatives, we're becoming innovators and futurists as well. So here we see the job translation cycle, showing which sector people work in over time, highlighting that the service sector has in fact skyrocketed. Services represent the top layer of economic sectors, which is dependent on and rests above manufacturing, which is dependent on and it rests above the primary sector. In this graph, it's termed agriculture, but more accurately, it's raw materials processing, so it includes agriculture. The dangerous and repetitive work of primary and manufacturing sectors no longer needs us humans on the front line. We don't need to be there anymore. Robotics and automation open new career pathways, but they're all over in the services sector. That means, guess what? Robots are not stealing our jobs. Robots are changing our roles and they're asking us to upskill into new services type jobs. Here we see a nice case example of the automotive industry in Germany. So the introduction of robots had a twofold impact. Firstly, it got us humans off the repetitive and dangerous manufacturing line, but also you can see here the dramatic rise in job creation that took place. Now, these are new jobs and they're not in raw processing. They're not in manufacturing. These are service jobs. And so that means they often have higher pay as well as more rewarding tasks. So we'll take a look at some examples of future roles in just a moment. But here on our next slide, at the top of the robotics and automation profession, working in Industry 4, we find mechatronic engineers. On my team, I work with over 10 mechatronic engineers. This is also the area students come to Freelance Robotics for tertiary internships or secondary schoolwork placements. Mechatronics is the largest growing sector of engineering in Australia, producing more graduates per year than any other engineering type. And this is true for all states of Australia to my knowledge. So common areas of work include aerospace, includes manufacturing, and of course the resource sector. But the reality is that robotics and automation is in fact in every sector. Mechatronics was initially the melding of mechanical and electronic engineering, so that's why we have the name mechatronics. But now in real world terms, these engineers are also experts in control systems and also in computing. Mechatronic engineers are excellent with IT. For example, they code for the AI systems. And the interface of software and hardware is the basis for Industry 4 cyber physical systems. And so we have some examples here, and they would include autonomous robots, the Internet of Things, also the industrial Internet of Things, where we work quite heavily, cybersecurity and cloud computing as well. Students currently engaged in the ICT pathway at school, a useful question, look, is to ask what robotics industry skills are employers actually looking for? Essentially, what are your transferable skills? I would summarize these skills to focus on developing into 7 points. So the first one is systems thinking. I need you to start realizing that all of the system is in fact your job. 2, a programming mindset. You need to learn multiple languages. My boss, he knows over 20 programming languages. And so this idea that you're going to stop at Python or C is not going to be reliable once you start to hit the working environment. 3, active learning. I want you to be accountable for your skills and address the skills gap that you can see existing in your career pathways. 4, obviously STEM skills. Physics and applied math, they really do strengthen your real world ability to do the work. 5, clear judgment with the ability for reliable, rational, and evidence-based decision-making. 6, good communication. And now that's both verbal and written, and we need to focus on project documentation. It's incredibly important that you know how to develop a way in which you can reliably explain what it is that you're doing on your projects. And you can start that in your robotics classes right now. And also, finally, what we need is technology design. So that's computer-aided design. So you might know this best through the program SolidWorks, as well as computer-aided manufacturing and computer-aided engineering as well. So let's have a look at what the future of work really means in robotics and automation. Not everyone is destined to become a mechatronics engineer. However, everyone is going to be working with advanced technology. And this is when we get hit with the hard truth, and that is it is estimated over 60% of jobs people will be working in 2030. They're still emerging now. We are training students for a rapidly changing job market that asks them to work roles we can't yet define because it will be shaped by technological advances we just have not seen yet. So these jobs are emerging. So for example, the system integrators, augmented reality journey builders, fintech advisors, smart city advisors. I work with people holding these job titles now, but I'm yet to meet a genomic portfolio designer. I haven't met a rewilder or a true high volume cross-sector garbage upcycle design engineer, but these guys are going to be extremely important. I can see how all of these jobs are needed. And in fact, when we start to develop a better understanding of the impact of the fourth industrial revolution, I think we'll see how many more jobs we truly need to start investing our skill sets into. World Economic Forum, they're advising essential skills post-2022 are the soft skills. Analytical thinking and innovation remain key to successful training for employment. In the coming years, we expect active learning capabilities, and creativity to make a huge difference. They're climbing the ranks of the most in-demand skills after 2022. Emotional intelligence and leadership abilities continue being sought after. Computational thinking and programming, they become crucial. So if we're thinking of where we're investing our time in our current education preparation, I want to emphasize the ability for you to demonstrate soft skills now. As you can see in this iceberg, in fact, the hard skills, you'll be potentially training on those adaptively over time. You can develop those, but no matter what those hard skills are, they're resting very solidly on what people don't always see, which is the soft skills. And when people are looking at employability, yeah, the hard skills are learnable. The soft skills, they need to be demonstrated from the commencement of you in your workplace. So I really want to emphasize, I think the World Economic Forum got this one right, and it's exactly what I'm looking for in my interns and my placement students that are coming into the office. I'm looking for soft skills. Now, I'm going to get one takeaway from today. It is that students benefit from on-the-job training, which we often hear termed as applied learning. The skills gap is the difference between the skills employers or the self-employed need to work versus the skills those workers currently have. Due to the rapidity of change in industry, it is the case that skills development from on-the-job training, it can fill that gap. For students, this may be an internship or a placement to offset learning taking place in the classroom. It's really an ability that you have. You can get agile and you can do it sooner rather than later. At least students developing their future working skill set can know what they don't know, if you like. And remember, industrial revolutions, they create jobs. The jobs are just different to those we had based on the older technology. Statistics are there, sure. But think of the evidence in your own experience, in our own lives. We rarely meet a blacksmith or pick up the phone to hear the words, operator speaking. The escalating value of internships is that students can learn the skills needed by industry and push forward due to digitisation, so that as those older jobs are moving away, you are already pre-prepared for the jobs that we're moving into, and we're moving into them at a rapid pace. It also gives employers the ability to get agile, get the students to work the technology and future roles that they see emerging now. And at Freelance Robotics, we have ongoing engagement through internships for both high school and for university students. Internships, they're unpaid, which is most frequently the case in industry. The internships focus on content which is not in customer-facing roles. The hours of work are the same as our employees, as the documentation required is also the same as what we would ask our employees to be doing. Now, the internship projects, they're always focused on in-house intellectual property. That's why we're not putting people in the front line with customers. Instead, it's much better to do a research type role. And they're appropriate. They're set to the time length that's available for that person who's coming in to do their internship. Now, if people are thinking, what do I need to go into a robotics engineering firm so that I can get started? Really, you need to know Arduino. And I'd also say that you need to have a good knowledge of Python, as well as those soft skills that we were highlighting earlier. Whenever I look back over the interns who were extremely successful, I always think how professionally they presented and how competent they were at interacting with my team. Outside of the company, in general terms, professional development likely means just knowing your skill set and where the skills gap is, and then being accountable for you to fill that skills gap. So ultimately, the future of work is asking us to become lifelong learners. Now, before we finish, I do want to highlight the Robotics Roadmap for Australia. Now, the first edition was released in 2018 to coordinate national capability in robotics and automation. And I was fortunate to be a co-chair as well as the author for the skills chapter in the soon to be released second edition. So we can be expecting that before end of year with the 2022 release date formally published. Much like the first edition, version 2, however, is going to be available online once it is published. And if you're looking for an excellent resource outlining the impact of robotics and automation in key industries, I fundamentally think this is your go-to guide. Please feel free to contact me directly for a PDF copy of the Robotics Roadmap. And thank you for your time and attention today. If you're looking for prototyping, custom software, custom hardware, or a good look at advanced technology projects, please contact the staff at Freelance Robotics. And if you want more about resources on the future of work, certainly the ICT Gateway to Industry Schools program is a really great place to start. Geraldine, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you for your informative presentation, Amanda. We now have some questions from our audience. Are there more jobs in land robots or robotic arms?
Sure. This is an interesting question in that both of these, I guess, machine types are long-standing. So robotic arms are historically more focused in industry, and we call these Cartesian robots. And when we're talking about land robots, really it's a vehicle system that we're automating. And if we want to get off 2D and move into 3D, talking about robots, we're also talking aerial drones and submersible drones as well. Moving into the next phase of, I guess, where someone's training pathways will go, looking at work in the long term. I don't think that it's about, the type, so much about the application and the industry sector that someone's looking to work inside of. So essentially this next generation technology is such a game changer. There's going to be a massive volume of work coming through. Whatever industry and application you're most interested in, I'd say that's probably going to indicate the type of robotic system that you'll be looking at. Because remember I said, look at the whole system as your job. And when we start to carve things out, such as vehicle versus arm, we forget the fact that robotic systems are likely inclusive of both autonomous navigation and robotic arm systems, particularly when they're collaborative robotic arm systems.
Also, what type of robots do you make?
We do prototypes first. So the company Freelance Robotics was originally set up to bridge the gap between research academics and commercialization. In Australia, there's actually a bit of a problem. There's a bit of a gap between these two things being achievable. And coming from the prototype sector means that, guess what? Whatever our customers want us to do, that's what we're delivering on. So the type of robots that we've built have been extraordinarily broad. Some of our key projects at the moment include a barista robotic kiosk, so you can have a robot make you a cup of coffee. We also have a martial arts training robot, which is going to be great for personal training as well as potentially an arcade system, an educational system. The other robots we do are pit and pipe inspection robots as part of smart cities deployment. That's an extremely broad amount of work that we've done. We're moving very heavily into automated outdoor vehicles as well.
I enjoy sumo robot competitions. What do you recommend for a career in robotics?
Sure. Okay. Sumo bots. It's a robot competition where the goal is to push the competitor robot off of a playing field. That's my memory of it. It looks very much like a sumo disc. The utility of robotics competitions is an interesting one. I'm really happy that you like doing the comps with the sumo bots. It's a lot of fun. The idea of these robotic competitions in a lot of ways is just to get you interested in the idea of a STEM career, to actually get some hands-on practice. This is a type of applied learning. The question is, what is going to be translatable in terms of a next step career? Like I said before, when I was talking about the utility of what sort of robots you might like to work with is really about industry and application. I would say if you're fascinated with those sumo bots, if this is something that you're quite engaged with and you want to make a career out of it, it won't look like sumo bots, but what it will look like potentially is really interesting times spent with the next generation of cyber physical systems. And because you're used to building and utilizing these robots early, it means that your systems understanding will already be more developed. That's exciting because it means that as you continue your education pathway, that thinking style is going to translate to how you do your work. So I'd say that the field is very open for you.
When do you think there will be autonomous cars?
Well, they're already here. I think, like, when will we have autonomous cars on our streets? Oh, now that's not really a question about technology. It's actually a question about policy. So there's all these things happening in the background. When it comes to the way in which we have a new industry rolling out, obviously we have to be able to integrate with society successfully. And there's a huge amount of work to be done in the legal policy, the rules and regulations, the system of governance when it comes to utilizing new technology. And technology on the roads is a big one because it's a huge factor called occupational health and safety. We can't have people going about their day-to-day lives in an unsafe environment. And until that technology is, I think, proven most likely overseas, although we do have a wonderful test bed down in South Australia when it comes to the truthing grounds for autonomous vehicles, I think it's really going to come down to when the policy and the legislators are ready to say yes.
Have you had a coffee made by the barista robot? Is it any good?
Yes, I have. I've had many. In fact, I'm really very fortunate because I have at least one barista robot coffee every day. And not only that, I also like to have the one that's a chai latte. It does mocha as well. You can have a hot chocolate. Not the biggest fan. I tend to stick to the coffees or the chais.
Do you think quantum computing could change the robotics industry?
Yeah, I do. There's all of this exciting early stage materials processing that's happening. Edge computing is another one. Yes, quantum computing as well. And then we look at the way in which we're looking at different scales of robotics, such as, nano. The reality is that the game changes are happening simultaneously, they're happening rapidly. And what this means in terms of our ability as a society to adapt to that change is going to take a long time, I think, before we understand the impact and can adequately do our best way of interacting the human-machine interface with these new types of computing.
How could I get an internship?
Yeah, good question. For instance, at Freelance Robotics, I can't speak for every other company, but there's no set application process. What you do is you send me an email. So you would have noticed before I put up some contact information. I don't want to receive that email from a parent or from a teacher. I want it from the applicant. The reality is that we're building all the time this idea of accountability, autonomous functioning, and that you are responsible for the work that you are doing. And that starts at the absolute first step. So when people are applying for an internship, what they do is they send me an email introducing themselves, and they also provide me with both their CV, a cover letter, and appropriate references. At the moment, we have two QUT, one UQ interns happening to work simultaneously on an autonomous navigation system. So they're doing really well. We won't be taking any more tertiary applicants until next year. And then when it comes to high school students, because we want to give you the best learning environment, I only take one at a time, and we don't take them at high volume either. So I think this year I've had 4, and so we're sitting now in October. I've had 4 high school students over the course of this year. Obviously, when COVID is happening, we don't take any interns on site at all, whether they're tertiary or secondary school. The important part is to make that application and make it clear why it is that you think that you would best benefit from what might in fact be something of a rare egg compared to how many CVs that I'm looking at. But don't just stop with freelance robotics. I would say if you really want to give it a go, have a look around. In Queensland alone, I can say as a member of the robotics cluster, we have over 150 companies all working in robotics. And no matter where you're positioned across Queensland, it's likely that there might be someone with reasonable proximity to you. And certainly the GISP ICT program, I know that they have excellent connections across the education and industry sectors. So if you're not reaching out to those companies directly, or if you're not sure who to reach out to, engage with GISP ICT, or even give the robotics cluster a tap and see if there's someone who can assist you to get the best opportunity with your growth.
I think we have time for one final question. You mentioned that COVID may change the distribution of robot and human jobs. Are there any particularly influential robots or areas of work that you think will be created?
Sure. That's a really interesting question. I would say that whilst it's not a robot, the thing that we have now that we didn't have pre-COVID is the utility of teleconferencing. You know, for example, the system that we're on at the moment, I believe it's Microsoft Teams. You know, these are COVID reactionary technologies that have been sitting around for a long time. Before COVID, pre-COVID, those of us who are in the tech sector and looking at futurist planning were sitting around twiddling our thumbs and saying, when are we going to start investing? Because there's a huge volume of capacity sitting inside of technology development. When are we going to give this an opportunity? And COVID has pushed that forward considerably. I would say if I was going to give my top 3, and I don't know if they're really going to be the top 3 in 3 months' time because of agile and the fact advanced technology is shifting so rapidly. My opinion is that hygiene robots, so they're the robotic platforms that have the ability to cleanse an environment, for instance, via ozone deployment. That's certainly something that I hadn't seen pre-COVID and I think has been incredibly well used. These hygiene robots, particularly in Southeast Asia, have been a phenomenal deployment. I think also autonomous delivery for the Domino's of the world, for people who are doing food delivery. This has made a big difference when it comes to access for periods and times when there's been strict lockdowns. Once again, I'm thinking of the US as an example, in California, where we've seen some really amazing autonomous vehicle deployments take place. And if I had to pick a number 3, in terms of what I think is going to happen next, it's not necessarily so much about the physical, but the cyber. And what is amazing is cloud computing. So we now have the ability to coordinate our workplaces so that remote work has become something which is not just a theoretical gain, but a real life experience for literally hundreds of thousands, if not the basic millions of people over the world now have the ability to work different hours, different conditions, and it has improved their efficiency. And as we start to see cloud computing impacting the way in which we understand smart cities, the metrics that come through with machine algorithm and usage, I think that this is going to be a massive game changer post-pandemic. We can track ourselves, we can track our environment, and we can also track our work utility with far greater efficiency. And what we're learning from that is really amazing.
Thank you, Amanda.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Geraldine.
That brings our Tech Talk to a close. Sincere thanks to Dr. Amanda White from Freelance Robotics for providing an insight into her own pathway and the opportunities for a great career in the technology industry. We hope you can join us again next Wednesday on the 20th of October, where we will host Ashley Ward from cybersecurity company Insane Technologies. For more information on careers in tech and the recording of this presentation, visit the ACS Foundation website. We hope to see you again next week. Stay safe.